Chosen one, you were not led here by chance. This moment was written into the fabric of eternity before you took your first breath. The Spirit of God has drawn you into this revelation because heaven has chosen to unveil something hidden, something that has been operating in the shadows while you've been rising in divine authority. What you are about to hear is not entertainment. It is a decree from the throne of heaven. The system has been watching you, not because of who you were, but because of who you are becoming. They sensed the shift in your frequency long before you understood your own assignment. The spiritual realm recognized your ascension before the earthly realm could categorize you. And now, the veil is lifting. You have stepped into a prophetic hour where the watchers of this world are being exposed, and the truth of your mandate is about to be revealed. You were never the target of fear. You were the evidence of divine government in motion. There has been a silent war, not fought with weapons or soldiers, but with surveillance, manipulation, and control. The system has tracked the movements of those who carry heaven's seal of leadership because your presence threatens the architecture of their influence. Every prophet, every reformer, every divine ruler has been shadowed by the powers that fear the unseen. From Moses before Pharaoh to Daniel in the court of kings, every chosen leader was monitored by systems that sought to understand and restrain them. But now, heaven speaks. The watchers have been seen. The eyes that observed you are now exposed by the very light they feared. The time of silent observation has ended, and a new order of spiritual authority is rising. Stay with me until the end. This revelation carries your next divine instruction, the one that separates survival from destiny. Before we move deeper, I want you to act in faith. This is not a routine moment. It is a prophetic alignment. If you are ready to step into the revelation heaven prepared for you, type these words in the comments. I am watched by heaven. That declaration is your seal of agreement. When you write it, heaven records it as a covenant of alignment. And as you do, click like on this message, not as habit, but as a prophetic act of unity. Subscribe, not as routine, but as a sign that you are part of the divine movement awakening across the nations. Every engagement is more than digital. It is spiritual participation. When the righteous agree, heaven moves. Now listen carefully, chosen one. What comes next will shift how you see power, authority, and destiny. What you thought was surveillance was actually heaven preparing a public revelation of your hidden purpose. Before we go deeper, let me share something with you. Everything I'm saying here connects directly to what I reveal in the Manual of God's Chosen Warrior. It's a 10-step guide to help you rise in kingdom order, to think, act, and lead as one called to reign. You'll find the link in the description and in the first pinned comment. You can explore it later, or click now if you're ready to step into divine leadership. Chosen one, what you are about to hear is not just explanation, it is revelation. The truth of why you were watched lies deeper than the human eye can see. When the system began to trace your movements, it wasn't merely out of curiosity or threat assessment. It was because your spirit began to emit a frequency of divine government that unsettled the foundations of man-made control. Just as Pharaoh feared the rise of Moses before a single plague struck Egypt, modern powers sense a vibration in the spiritual atmosphere, one they cannot analyze or contain. You are not being watched because of what you do, but because of what you represent. Freedom that cannot be legislated, influence that cannot be bought, and power that cannot be corrupted. The surveillance of heaven's emissaries has always been the first sign that an empire is trembling before its fall. When systems fear loss of control, they create illusions of power, walls of data, cameras, algorithms, and intelligence, all designed to maintain the image of omniscience. But there is no omniscience outside of God. Those who track the chosen try to mimic divine awareness, yet all they produce is anxiety and deception. The reason the system fears you, chosen one, is because you move under a kingdom it cannot predict. Earthly governance operates through observation, but divine governance operates through revelation. Daniel was tracked in Babylon not because of rebellion, but because of his excellence. His spirit could not be measured by political protocol. Likewise, your consistency, your silence, your refusal to be shaped by fear have drawn attention from structures that understand only control. Understand this clearly. There is a difference between power granted by man and authority entrusted by God. Human systems are built to protect their hierarchies, but divine authority exists to restore balance and truth. The moment heaven places its seal upon your life, the counterfeit powers begin to tremble. You were not called to destroy the system. You were chosen to expose its weakness, to reveal how fragile control is when faced with divine purpose. When God lifts one person above manipulation, He demonstrates that truth still outranks surveillance. The tracking of the chosen is heaven's way of making the rulers of this age confront their limits. The government of heaven does not need to hide. It reigns through transparency, through integrity, through light that no shadow can contain. This moment in history is not random. The rise of global observation, digital control, and political censorship are not merely technological trends. They are spiritual indicators that the throne of heaven is confronting the kingdoms of men. Every empire that sought to monitor its people eventually faced collapse when it tried to play the role of God. The same principle is active today. What is being exposed is not just corruption or deceit, but the deeper fear of losing dominion over human conscience. The chosen ones are not simply awakening spiritually, they are awakening politically, prophetically, and strategically. They are learning that divine authority must manifest in real decisions, in real leadership, in real reform. That is why heaven is exposing the watchers, because the time for divine governance to emerge has come. The same spirit that once hardened Pharaoh's heart is alive in modern systems of control. It hides behind bureaucracy, ideology, and technology, but its essence is unchanged: fear of liberation. Just as Pharaoh feared losing his laborers, the system fears losing its influence over minds and souls. It seeks to own information, to distort truth, to dictate identity. But you, chosen one, are the living contradiction of its agenda. You are free in thought, sovereign in spirit, and aligned with heaven's order. Your awakening is its nightmare. Every time you choose integrity over conformity, truth over popularity, and purpose over comfort, the system's grip weakens. Its surveillance cannot comprehend faith. It can record your actions but not your anointing. It can monitor your presence but never your authority. What they call intelligence, heaven calls limitation. The digital eyes that follow your steps are blind to the unseen hand that guides you. God allows their observation because it becomes the evidence of His protection. Remember how Daniel's enemies watched every move he made, searching for fault, yet only proved his loyalty to heaven. The same pattern unfolds now. You are being observed so heaven can vindicate you publicly. The greater the scrutiny, the greater the divine proof. The agency may track, but heaven testifies. Their files will become records of your righteousness. Every attempt to confine you will serve as documentation for your coronation. The Watchers thought they were collecting data, but they were witnessing prophecy in motion. The system believes observation equals control, but heaven uses observation to establish testimony. You are being positioned before the eyes of men not to be humiliated, but to be justified. When the enemy watches, he becomes an unwitting witness to your transformation. The same happened to Joseph. Falsely accused, monitored in confinement, yet his restraint and wisdom became his qualification for rulership. The cell became the courtroom where heaven announced his destiny. Likewise, what feels like surveillance is actually your proving ground. You are being refined in plain sight, so that when your elevation arrives, even your observers will have no choice but to acknowledge the hand of God. Silence, chosen one, is your current strategy. Heaven has not called you to respond to every accusation or fear. When the Watchers monitor your movements, respond with stillness. Your silence is not weakness, it is prophetic discipline. It says, I am aware of the gaze, but I serve a higher throne. When you refuse to react, you confuse the system. They are accustomed to fear-driven responses, not faith-driven restraint. In your calmness lies your strength. Those who watch will soon realize they have been studying something they cannot decode. A mind governed by the Spirit, a leader guided by eternity. Every quiet step you take is a message. Divine governance does not need to defend itself. It manifests in time. This pattern is ancient. Every prophet, reformer, or divine ruler has been under observation before being unveiled. Moses was watched by the palace he would later confront. Daniel was spied on by advisors who would soon see him exalted. Even Jesus was monitored by religious and political authorities who mistook his humility for weakness. But heaven hides its kings in plain sight. The Watchers always arrive before the unveiling because exposure tests authenticity. You are in the same pattern now, observed not to be destroyed, but to be revealed. The intensity of the gaze confirms the magnitude of the calling. Every conflict between earthly systems and divine messengers signals the birth of a new era. The tracking of the chosen is not random. It's prophetic evidence of transition. Heaven is preparing to replace the illusion of control with the reality of divine order. This is why the eyes of men are fixed on you. They sense the atmosphere shifting, though they cannot articulate it. When spiritual authority rises, political power trembles. You, chosen one, are the signpost of that shift. The surveillance around you is the final resistance before surrender. The Watchers are witnessing the birth of a new dominion, one that cannot be ruled, only revealed. You may have felt the weight of unseen eyes, the pressure of misunderstanding, or the burden of being misunderstood. But understand this: what was once surveillance is now testimony. Heaven is not silent. It has been documenting every moment of your faithfulness. Even as the system sought to control your narrative, God was writing a greater story. The same observation meant for intimidation has become evidence of your alignment. You were never hiding. You were being positioned. The eyes that once watched to limit you will soon witness your rise. The very system that tried to measure you will be the stage upon which your divine authority is revealed. The season you have stepped into, chosen one, is no longer a hidden process, but a public unfolding of heaven's design. Every movement you make under divine instruction has a double effect. It strengthens your inner authority and weakens the illusions of the system. The structures that once thought themselves untouchable are now cracking under the weight of truth. Their secret archives cannot contain what God is about to release through you. The exposure of these agencies is not for spectacle, but for justice, so that the watching world sees the difference between control and righteous governance. When heaven lifts the veil, what was hidden in darkness becomes a stage for God's sovereignty. This is the beginning of a new order, and you have been prepared to lead in it. All around the world, invisible powers have built mechanisms to watch, influence, and subdue free thought. But what they call progress is, in fact, their confession of fear. Surveillance grows where legitimacy is weak. A system confident in its righteousness does not need to spy on its citizens. Only a trembling kingdom does. This is why the rise of monitoring technologies mirrors the rise of heaven's emissaries. As the light increases, so does the resistance to it. Yet the pattern never changes. Every time a Joseph rises, a Pharaoh feels threatened. Every time a Daniel prays, a decree is written to silence him. But decrees against heaven's authority always backfire. What they plan to use to weaken you becomes the very tool of your elevation. There is a wisdom you must carry now. Do not interpret surveillance as rejection, but as confirmation. Those who are watched by the world are often already seen by heaven. This is not the hour to shrink or to hide. It is the hour to understand your training. The system's attention is an announcement that your influence has surpassed their understanding. Just as the lions could not devour Daniel because heaven had already decreed his safety, the structures monitoring you cannot stop what has been ordained. Their observation cannot override your covenant. Your calling is not fragile. It was forged in secrecy for this moment of public revelation. Everything about your journey has been intentional. The delays, the betrayals, the seasons of invisibility, they were not punishments, but preparation. Heaven allowed you to be underestimated because exposure without maturity destroys leaders. Now, after enduring their gaze, you are ready to govern without intimidation. The watchers no longer terrify you because you have learned to fear only God. This inner shift is your true power. Leadership in God's kingdom begins with self-governance under His Spirit. Once you have conquered fear within, no external system can dominate you. The spirit of Pharaoh still works today, hiding under modern language and policies, but its heart is the same. Keep the chosen in bondage, even if only mentally. It understands that a free mind aligned with heaven is more dangerous than any army. That is why your awakening is a direct threat to their control. But the more they watch, the more they reveal their own weakness. The system has already shown you its hand. Fear, deception, distraction. You, however, have been given discernment. Heaven is training your eyes to see not just what they do, but why they do it. This is the skill of true governance. To read motives, not only actions. In this time, silence is strategy. Restraint is not passivity. It is mastery. When you know you are being observed, your discipline becomes your shield. It frustrates the system because it cannot provoke you into predictable patterns. Every time you respond from the Spirit instead of impulse, you short-circuit their schemes. They are accustomed to controlling reactions. They do not know how to handle someone led by revelation. This is why heaven has been refining your patience, so that you can outlast every trap, expose every hidden agenda, and lead with unshakable composure. And now, the watchers are becoming visible. Their hidden counsels are leaking. Their covert strategies are faltering. Their illusions of omnipotence are dissolving. This is not coincidence. It is the timing of heaven. The same God who hardened Pharaoh's heart also scheduled his downfall. The same Spirit who allowed you to be observed is now turning the light upon your observers. What they meant for control has become a testimony against them. This is the moment when the hidden reverses and the humble are exalted. Chosen one, you are stepping into a season where you will no longer be defined by their gaze, but by your assignment. Chosen one, the shift is already underway. Heaven is no longer simply preparing you, it is positioning you. The exposure of the Watchers is not an isolated event, but part of a prophetic pattern where God dismantles structures that stand between His people and their assignment. Just as the walls of Jericho fell not by human hands, but by divine timing, so the invisible walls of control surrounding you are cracking under the sound of heaven's decree. Every file, every hidden agenda, every whispered strategy designed to restrict your influence is losing its power. What was once a fortress of secrecy has become a stage for your commissioning. You are not stepping into mere freedom, you are stepping into governmental authority under God. This is why their gaze has intensified, because the hour of their relevance is closing, and the hour of your leadership is dawning. This season is about more than survival. It is about enthronement under heaven's order, a transfer from observation to dominion that will reshape not only your life, but the spheres you are called to govern. Do not mistake the tremors you feel as chaos. They are birth pangs of a new administration. When old regimes feel the weight of a rising order, they thrash in desperation. They leak information. They attack character. They fabricate narratives, all to preserve an illusion of control. Yet what they cannot see is that every attack is making you stronger, more disciplined, more discerning. Heaven is not only exposing their deeds, heaven is also refining your heart so you can steward power without corruption. This dual process, their exposure and your preparation, ensures that when the tables turn, you will not replicate their mistakes. You will rule with integrity where they ruled with manipulation. You will govern with wisdom where they governed with fear. You will understand that authority is not dominance, but stewardship. And because you have learned this in the shadows, you will walk it out in the light with unshakable composure. Look at the pattern in Scripture. Joseph was accused and confined before he was elevated to Pharaoh's court. Daniel was plotted against before he interpreted the writing on the wall. Even Christ himself was monitored by the religious and political authorities before his crucifixion and resurrection. In every case, surveillance preceded unveiling. The Watchers always come before the enthronement because their gaze becomes the evidence of destiny. This is where you stand now, chosen one. You are at the intersection of scrutiny and ascension. What they record as suspicion, heaven records as qualification. The very systems that tried to categorize you are about to validate you. Their attempts to suppress your voice will serve as the proof of your calling. And when the moment of public recognition arrives, it will be undeniable, because it will have been witnessed by those who once doubted you most. The reason this matters is because leadership under God is not abstract. It is not a mystical title. It is the practical manifestation of divine order in territories, systems, and cultures. Heaven raises a chosen one, not to escape the world, but to govern within it. That is why you must see this surveillance season differently. It was not an invasion of your privacy, but a preparation of your public platform. Heaven knew you would be called to influence policies, shift environments, restore justice, and model integrity in places where compromise had reigned. You cannot do that from the shadows without first being trained under scrutiny. This is the paradox of divine preparation. You are hidden and exposed at the same time, so that when your moment comes, you are both humble and fearless. This is the weight you carry now, and it is also the proof of your readiness. When you begin to act from this revelation, the power dynamic reverses. The watchers lose their advantage because their surveillance becomes irrelevant. They cannot manipulate what they cannot predict. A person led by the Spirit is ungovernable by fear. This is why your discipline, your silence, your consistency have been so crucial. Heaven has been training you to lead from conviction, not reaction. You have been learning to discern motives, not merely actions. You have been practicing restraint, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. Every time you refused to retaliate, you were sharpening your spiritual sight. Every time you chose prayer over panic, you were building the architecture of your future influence. This is not just character development. It is strategy from the throne. You are being equipped to govern systems that once tried to govern you. The watchers are now at a crossroads. The exposure you are witnessing is not a random leak or a human whistleblower. It is heaven's timing. It is the fulfillment of a divine cycle where every hidden thing is brought into the light. Just as Daniel read the writing on the wall declaring the end of Babylon's reign, so too the writing is appearing now against the systems that tried to monitor the chosen. The days of unchecked manipulation are closing. The eyes that watched will now be watched. The agencies of control are becoming testimonies of their own corruption. This is not your doing. It is God's doing. Your role is to stand ready, to walk in integrity, and to step into leadership as the structures crumble. This is not the hour of vengeance, but the hour of justice. Heaven is repositioning authority, and you are part of that transfer. If this message is awakening something inside you, pay attention. Just like David was prepared in the hidden place before leading, and Nehemiah received vision before rebuilding, you also need prosperity to fulfill your calling. That's why I created the Manual of God's Chosen Warrior, a 10-step guide to break scarcity and walk in divine abundance, both spiritual and financial. The link is in the description and the first pinned comment. Click there and take the next step toward the prosperity God prepared for you. Chosen one, understand this clearly. The shift you are experiencing is not just an internal awakening, but a geopolitical and spiritual repositioning. The systems that tracked you did so because they sensed you were a carrier of a governmental anointing that transcends their categories. They saw movement without understanding its source, so they labeled it threat instead of destiny. Heaven allowed that misinterpretation because exposure refines character. While they watched your outward steps, heaven was fortifying your inner foundations. Every moment of scrutiny, every attempt to box you in, became a training ground in resilience and discernment. You are now emerging from that crucible with a clarity no algorithm can predict. You are no longer a target for their fear. You are becoming the standard by which their fear is revealed. This is why the tone of the Spirit in this hour is not defensive, but declarative. It is not asking you to run, but to stand, to carry the weight of destiny openly, knowing that no hidden network can override a divine decree once it has reached its appointed time. The old regime of control is collapsing under its own weight. Surveillance has become its idol. But idols always betray their makers. Just as Nebuchadnezzar's statue was struck and shattered without human hands, so the great image of omniscience they have built is fracturing. What they believed would give them dominance has exposed their desperation. The leaks, the scandals, the breakdowns in their systems are not coincidences. They are symptoms of a spiritual sickness being brought to light. Heaven is pulling back the curtain to show you and the world that no kingdom built on fear can outlast the kingdom built on truth. This should not make you arrogant, but sober, because it means you will be called to fill the vacuum they leave behind. Leadership without preparation collapses quickly. That is why your years of being watched have been years of being prepared. When you step into your assignment, you will not mimic their methods. You will govern with transparency, stewardship, and courage, because you have lived under the gaze and learned to fear only God. Everything in this process has been about alignment. The Watchers thought they were cataloging your movements, but heaven was aligning your steps to the rhythm of its own governance. Even your frustrations, your delays, your obscurity were synchronization exercises. Joseph had to learn administration in Potiphar's house and patience in prison before he could manage a nation. Daniel had to master integrity under foreign scrutiny before he could stand before kings. You are in that same lineage. The exposure you've endured is the confirmation that you are about to manage influence at a scale that would have crushed an unprepared heart. Heaven never wastes a struggle. Every hidden prayer, every silent victory, every disciplined choice has been shaping you into a leader who can walk into the corridors of power and remain uncorrupted. This is the fruit of your hidden season. And now the hidden season is ending. This is why the Spirit now says to you, rise without fear. The eyes that once sought to intimidate you are now blind to your next move. They cannot predict the hand of God. They cannot intercept a word that has already been spoken over you in eternity. They cannot map a route that is being revealed to you moment by the Spirit. This is your strategic advantage. You are led, not driven. The system drives, heaven leads. The system manipulates, heaven positions. The system surveils, heaven reveals. These are not slogans. They are realities you are about to embody. When you walk into a room, you will not be reacting to power. You will be setting the atmosphere. When you speak, you will not be echoing the narratives of control. You will be releasing decrees of freedom. And because you have been formed in secrecy, you will not lose yourself in visibility. You will govern as one who has already died to fear and risen into authority. Chosen one, this hour calls for a new level of discernment. You are not just being freed from observation. You are being commissioned to oversee. The same way the system gathered intelligence on you, heaven will now give you insight into systems. You will see not only the structures of power, but the spirits that animate them. You will discern the motives behind the policies, the forces behind the headlines, the roots behind the fruits. This is not to make you paranoid, but to make you wise. Governance in God's kingdom is not reactive, but prophetic. It anticipates, it prepares, it stewards. This is why your prayer life has intensified, your inner discipline has sharpened, your sense of timing has matured. Heaven has been giving you the eyes of an overseer so that when you step into arenas of influence, you will not be blinded by the glare of opportunity or seduced by the applause of men. You will move with the calm of one who knows he is watched by heaven and guided by the Spirit. The exposure of the Watchers is a turning of the tide. It signals that the hidden season has accomplished its work. Just as Esther was hidden until the appointed moment to intercede for her people, so you have been hidden until the appointed time to intervene in systems. Your emergence is not an accident. It is an assignment. The Watchers were a signal that the stage was being set. Their exposure is the announcement that the curtain is about to rise. You are stepping into a season where you will speak and things will shift, where your decisions will carry weight beyond your position, where your presence will recalibrate environments. This is why the Spirit is speaking with such urgency now. You are not simply to celebrate exposure. You are to prepare for elevation. The window between the two is small. This is your moment to consecrate yourself afresh, to align your heart and your plans, because what you carry is not for display, but for deployment. Chosen one, This moment marks a divine shift, where you move from being watched to becoming the one who watches. Heaven has reversed the direction of observation. What once felt like surveillance is now strategy, as God begins to reveal the hidden mechanisms behind deceptive systems. You are being equipped to see through what masquerades as righteousness, yet operates in control. The intelligence once used to monitor you will now testify in your favor, as heaven dismantles strongholds built on misinformation and fear. This is not about curiosity or vengeance. It's about justice and restoration. You are no longer the subject of investigation. You are heaven's investigative voice, speaking not from emotion, but from divine authority, interpreting systems and dismantling lies through clarity, wisdom, and obedience. This confrontation is already underway in the spirit realm. The powers that once thrived in secrecy are being exposed by the presence of divine truth. Your discernment is not suspicion, it's revelation. It allows you to see past surface narratives into the hidden intentions beneath them. As systems of manipulation collapse, your words will no longer echo the news. They will become the news. Your voice is being entrusted with legislative power. Still, with this authority comes responsibility. Heaven is refining not just your words, but your heart. You were hidden to be purified of ambition, offense, and the need for validation. The temptation to use influence as retaliation will come, but you were not called to avenge. You were called to rebuild. You will lead through alignment, not reaction, modeling what it means to govern with purity and purpose. As old structures fall, heaven reveals why you were prepared in silence. Your rise will not be the result of noise, but the result of evidence. The fruit of your life, your consistency, character, and clarity, will silence opposition. You were not trained to rebel against darkness, but to build what outlasts it. In every space of influence, government, economy, culture, you will lead with wisdom and righteousness. The spirit of Joseph will guide your strategy. The spirit of Daniel will preserve your courage. You will not fight for relevance. Your obedience will prove heaven's rule. While others chase attention, you will carry revelation. This is not your moment to shine. It is your moment to govern. In stillness, obedience, and divine rhythm, you will move unpredictably, beyond the tracking of systems, because you listen only to the whisper of eternity. Chosen one, heaven now decrees. The watchers have been exposed. The cycle of intimidation is broken, and the season of governance has begun. You will see confirmation in world events, leaders falling, truths surfacing, structures shaking, not as chaos, but as transition. The old order is disintegrating, and the new one is forming through those who walk in righteousness. Your discernment is your weapon, your integrity your shield, and your obedience your crown. The days of hiding are over. You are not called to survive observation, but to reform the landscape that once confined you. As you rise, remember, authority without humility corrupts, but humility under authority transforms. Walk boldly, for heaven watches with delight as you take your place among those destined to govern with justice, compassion, and unwavering faith. This is your commissioning, sealed not by applause, but by decree. Chosen one, heaven is issuing a decree not just for your breakthrough, but for a global shift in authority. The systems that tried to monitor, suppress, or distort your calling have reached their end. Just as Daniel interpreted the end of Babylon's rule, this moment marks the fall of fear-based dominions. You have been watched, but those observations now serve as evidence for divine judgment. God is exposing hidden agendas, archives, and lies, bringing them into the light. This isn't random, it's liberation. Truth is striking down the strongholds that once operated in secret. You are stepping from the shadows into governmental purpose, and the heavens are backing you. This shift moves you from hidden identity to public mantle. What was internal, your discipline, prayers, and obedience, is now becoming external authority. You're no longer surviving, you're governing. This calls for greater vision. Heaven is granting you discernment that sees past illusions into true motives. This isn't suspicion, but precise spiritual insight for righteous leadership. You won't repeat old patterns of power. You'll embody leadership that serves. Still, power must be handled carefully. Humility is vital. Influence must be stewarded, not craved. Like Joseph and Daniel, you must lead with forgiveness, boldness, and purity. The signs of this decree will be visible. Leaders exposed, systems shaken, and your words validated as prophecy. You are no longer the observed, but the observer. Heaven has shifted the lens and handed you authority. Your responsibility is to lead with discipline, reflect God's heart, and transform systems. When you enter strategic places, you won't just participate, you'll shift atmospheres. Policies, ideas, and structures will bend toward righteousness because the spirit of government rests on you. This is more than a promotion. It is a divine ordination with generational consequences. Chosen one, hear now the word of personal commissioning. This is where revelation becomes assignment. Heaven says to you, you have been watched, tested, and proven. The season of concealment has matured your discernment, and now public validation is at hand. The same scrutiny that once intimidated you will now authenticate you. The world will see what heaven has always known. You are not merely a believer, but a ruler under divine authority. The storms you survived were your examinations, the betrayals, your initiation. You were not observed to be broken, but to be branded with legitimacy. From now on, you are called to lead from revelation, not reaction, from wisdom, not emotion. The gaze of the system no longer defines you. Heaven's gaze commissions you. The oil of government has been poured in your wilderness, and now its fragrance reaches the corridors of power. You will begin to see signs of transition. Doors that were shut will open, and those who once dismissed you will now seek your counsel. Not because they favor you, but because heaven has turned their hearts. Respond with grace, not pride. You rise not to prove superiority, but to demonstrate stewardship. Influence is not the goal. Transformation is. Every platform is now a pulpit of governance. Let your words carry the fragrance of divine order. Speak only with the weight of purpose. You've crossed from prayer into decree. Heaven backs voices that mirror its heart. Silence and speech are now both instruments of rule. To lead as heaven leads is to discern both motion and stillness. Your restraint will be as powerful as your boldness. Visibility requires vigilance. As your influence grows, protect your inner sanctuary. You'll be tempted to conform, to fit power's tone. Resist that. Your authority flows from being misunderstood for righteousness' sake. Remember Daniel, unbent before kings yet favored. Your peace will confuse, your integrity will confront. Your life becomes a mirror reflecting what systems can't replicate. You are not here to destroy Babylon, but to outlast it. Reformation begins not in revolt, but in reflection. The system collapses when it can't imitate the light you carry. Your distinction is the exposure. God is not raising celebrities. He's revealing reformers. You are heaven's contrast. The mantle you carry will attract both admiration and attack. Light will always provoke darkness. But you are not fighting people. You're confronting patterns. The true war is in the spirit. That's why prayer remains your government room. Speak not from desperation, but from dominion. Decree with the tone of one seated in heavenly places. Let your strength be tested in silence. Let false accusations sharpen your clarity. Every snare set for your fall becomes proof of your rise. When truth vindicates you, those who plotted will testify of your lifting. You won't need revenge. Heaven will speak on your behalf. Their schemes will spotlight your elevation. After exposure, a calm will follow. It will not be absence, it will be dominion taking its seat. Systems will fall silent. Heaven's voice will rise in those awakened by your obedience. Creation will respond to your decrees. You won't force doors. They'll recognize you and open. That's the reward of government carried in purity. You will walk through realms others only dreamed of. Not by force, but by favor. Never forget your wilderness. Return to its memory often. There, in the silence, you learn to hear. That remains your foundation. Every throne without humility becomes a prison, but with reverence, it becomes a gate of transformation. Chosen one, heaven now seals this word with peace. The watchers have been exposed, the system has been judged, and your mandate is clear. Govern with justice, serve with mercy, lead with vision. The eyes of the Lord are upon you, not in suspicion, but in delight. Walk as one who carries both the sword and the scroll, the authority to cut and the wisdom to heal. You are the fulfillment of a prophecy spoken over generations, that God would raise leaders who blend faith with function, prayer with policy, and revelation with reform. You are that manifestation. Step into it boldly. The days of hiding are over, and the light no longer belongs to the shadows. Rule with righteousness, for the time of divine government on earth has begun, and heaven's eyes, not man's, will forever watch over your reign. Chosen one, before we close this transmission, the Spirit urges you to equip yourself for the next dimension. I've prepared for you Manual of God's Chosen Warrior, a step-by-step guide to prosperity. It's 10 steps that bring together the spiritual and the practical, so you can live with purpose, wisdom, and real prosperity, even in your finances. The link's in the description and in the pinned comment. I'll talk more about it later, but if you already feel that this is for you, you can check it out now. Now, as this word comes to completion, receive the prophetic blessing of stability. You are entering a season where discernment will replace confusion, peace will replace anxiety, and divine authority will silence opposition. The same Spirit that exposed the watchers will now empower you to build what they tried to destroy. Systems will come to you seeking counsel because you will carry the fragrance of order. Your presence will calm chaos, your decisions will reset balance, and your faith will legislate peace. Every area of your life, from the personal to the political, will begin to reflect divine symmetry. Do not fear the spotlight that is coming, for it will not burn you, it will illuminate you. Heaven's favor is now your covering. This is not the time to retreat. It is the time to expand. Move forward as one approved by God, carrying both strategy and serenity, both courage and compassion. Chosen one, this word is your activation. Declare in the comments, "Heaven watches me with delight." That phrase is your prophetic signature. When you write it, the spirit realm records your agreement. Like this message and subscribe as an act of covenant, aligning with a global remnant that heaven is raising across nations. Your engagement is not vanity. It is visibility in the Spirit. Each interaction amplifies the voice of truth in the digital space, turning algorithms into altars. And to those who have already supported this mission through Buy Me a Coffee, heaven sees your seed. Every contribution strengthens the prophetic infrastructure that carries these messages to the chosen across the world. If you feel led, join them. The link is in the description or the first pinned comment. What you sow sustains the message that sustains others. You are not funding content. You are funding a movement of divine awakening. And now, chosen one, receive the final decree. May the eyes of heaven guard your path. May truth surround your name, and may justice follow your steps. You will not be overtaken by fear, for you walk under divine surveillance, not human suspicion. You are a governor in disguise, a ruler in preparation, and a vessel of restoration. Rise with authority. Govern with love. Lead with wisdom. For the watchers have fallen silent, and the throne has spoken. In this era of unveiling, you will reign not through domination, but through divine order. Your voice will become a frequency of stability in a world addicted to noise. Go forth as heaven's ambassador, and remember, you are not being tracked by men. You are being trusted by God. This is your season of manifestation. So it is decreed, so it shall be established. Amen.